Welcome to The Explainer. So, today we are diving into a seriously fascinating culinary journey. If you've ever wondered how the towering, snow-capped mountains of Nagano take incredibly simple ingredients, literally just flour and water, and somehow transform them into a cultural masterpiece, well, you are absolutely in the right place. We're looking at Shinshu Soba. And let me tell you, this is way beyond just a quick meal. It's a massive story of geography, history, and just unbelievable craftsmanship.
Okay, let's kick things off with this beautiful local proverb. Every bowl of soba is made twice, once by nature and once by human hands. I love starting with this because it completely hits the nail on the head when it comes to the romance and mystery of our entire journey today. It tells us right out of the gate that we can't just look at what the chef is doing. We have to look at the land itself to truly understand what's in the bowl.
Section 1. Paths to Perfect Soba. Now, before we head up into the mountains to look at that land, we really need to understand the foundation here. When it comes to crafting perfect soba, there are two very distinct philosophies. Take Juwari Soba. That's 100% buckwheat. It is bold, it has this deep, rich flavor, and a super strong fragrance. But because it doesn't have any gluten, the dough cracks really easily, making it notoriously difficult to pull off. Now, contrast that with Nihachi Soba, which gives you this smooth, elastic, and incredibly elegant experience. And it's absolutely crucial to remember here that neither of these is inferior. They're just different vibes of the same art form. And trust me, both have fiercely devoted fans.
So, how does Nihachi achieve that perfectly smooth texture? It all comes down to an exact balance. 80% buckwheat flour and 20% wheat flour. And you know, that wheat isn't some sort of cheap shortcut. It actually provides the essential elasticity to keep the noodles from breaking, which creates that smooth, slurpable texture that a lot of diners consider the absolute ideal bowl of soba.
Moving right along to Section 2, Terroir of Shinshu Soba. To really get this dish, we have to borrow a concept you usually hear about in the world of fine wine, and that is terroir. The specific climate, the soil, the water, the elevation, all of these elements are intimately connected, and they literally shape the final flavor of the humble buckwheat grain.
And across Nagano, the geography is so diverse that it creates entirely different expressions of the exact same grain. In Togakushi, the cool climate and all that abundant spring water lead to a really elegant presentation. Over in Azumino, fed by the pure snowmelt of the northern Alps, the soba is super simple and refined. And if you travel up into the Kaida Highlands, we're talking over 1,000 meters in elevation, the slow growth of the buckwheat up there results in an intensely strong fragrance.
Speaking of Togakushi, their traditional bokimori presentation style is totally fascinating. These neat little bundles of noodles aren't just arranged like that to look pretty on the plate. It's actually a highly practical technique. It prevents the noodles from sticking together, which makes the whole meal so much easier and more enjoyable to eat. It is the perfect example of form meeting function, totally adapted to the local environment.
Which brings us to Section 3, History and Craftsmanship.
Okay, so nature definitely did its part. But how did human hands actually elevate this? Well, long before modern transport, the historic Nakasendō route stretched right through the mountains of Shinshu, connecting Edo, which is modern-day Tokyo, all the way down to Kyoto. A massive mix of weary travelers, from merchants and samurai to everyday pilgrims, relied on this specific route. I mean, imagine walking 20 to 30 kilometers every single day. Roadside inns started serving soba because it was fast, it was nutritious, it was hot, and it was made right there from local ingredients. These historic travelers literally put Shinshu Soba on the map, spreading its reputation across the entire country.
But here's the thing. Making this dish isn't like following a baking recipe from a box. It demands a really rigorous apprenticeship. A master starts with the basics of cleaning and preparing, but when it gets to mixing the dough, rolling, and cutting, that has to be done entirely by instinct. The artisan has to intuitively adapt to daily changes in humidity and seasonal shifts in temperature. Believe it or not, flour from the exact same field will behave completely differently from one harvest to the next.
All right, Section 4, Seasons of Soba. And you know, speaking of harvests, that connection to nature goes way beyond just the geography. It's deeply tied to the rhythm of the changing seasons. Every single autumn across Nagano, hardcore fans eagerly hunt for signs advertising Shin Soba, or new soba. This is a massive celebration of the fresh, recently milled autumn harvest, right when that buckwheat fragrance is at its absolute peak. People will literally plan entire weekend getaways around this, soaking in the brilliantly red and gold autumn foliage while eating this intensely aromatic new harvest.
Then,
As December rolls around and the year wraps up, the tradition shifts to Toshikoshi Soba, which translates to year-crossing soba, eaten on December 31st. The really long noodles symbolize a wish for a long, healthy life. But what's truly poetic about this is that because the noodles break so easily, they also represent cleanly snapping away from, or letting go of, all the hardships and misfortunes of the past year.
And finally, Section 5, the art of eating.
Let's talk about the actual sensory experience of eating it. I have a question for you. Why do experienced diners only dip the lower third of their noodles? If you watch first-time visitors, they will instinctively drown the whole bunch in the sauce, but that is actually a big mistake.
The answer actually reveals the entire core philosophy of the meal. The dipping sauce, known as tsuyu, is intentionally super concentrated. By dipping just a minimal amount, literally just that bottom third, you make sure that the delicate, earthy fragrance of the buckwheat isn't completely overwhelmed. The star of the show always remains the soba itself, not the sauce.
And this intense focus on aroma brings us to a rule that totally surprises a lot of Westerners. Slurping is actually highly encouraged. Slurping draws in air to carry all that amazing aroma right across your palate. It cools the hot noodles down, and it loudly demonstrates to the chef that you are immensely enjoying the food. Trust me, a quiet, sober restaurant is not necessarily a happy one.
Now, as your meal wraps up, you'll notice that absolutely nothing goes to waste. You'll be served sabayu. This is the hot, cloudy water that the noodles were actually boiled in. You pour it right into your leftover dipping sauce, mixing it to create this warm, subtle, earthy final drink. It's just a modest, really pure conclusion that perfectly reflects the very character of the Shinshu region.
It's also super fascinating because modern science completely backs up what these mountain communities instinctively knew all along. This simple little grain is packed with powerful nutrition. We're talking high-quality plant protein, dietary fiber, essential minerals like magnesium and manganese, and rutin, which is a really powerful antioxidant. For generations, this exact nutritional profile is what provided the vital energy needed for a demanding life up in the mountains.
To wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. How does a seemingly simple mix of just flour and water manage to capture centuries of history, the pure generosity of nature, and the entire soul of a region? The next time you encounter a simple regional dish, wherever you are, ask yourself, what story is the landscape trying to tell you? Thanks so much for exploring with me today.